And next up, we're talking about time of use tariffs and whether the clock is ticking. So we'll be back right after this video.
Energy prices fluctuate dramatically and are influenced by a variety of factors. Time of use tariffs offer huge potential to lower costs and stabilise the grid by incentivising users to shift consumption to lower price periods. But regulation, market requirements, and technical infrastructure vary significantly across countries. What are the major technological and regulatory hurdles that are slowing down the implementation of time of use tariffs across Europe and beyond? Discover the value of time of use tariffs, smart meters, and more in this panel, The Clock is Ticking on Time of Use Tariffs.
Welcome back, and for our second last session at gridXdays 2023, we're talking about time of use tariffs. It's a topic that's come up in a lot of previous sessions: dynamic tariffs, dynamic pricing, time of use. So I'm very excited to really dive into that topic now. We're going to learn about the value of time of use tariffs, the regulatory and technical barriers that must be overcome to enable their widespread adoption, and the different use cases in different regions. To discuss this, we have Jan Rabe, co-founder and CEO of Rabot Charge. A serial entrepreneur, Jan is the CEO and co-founder, as I just mentioned. And Rabot Charge offers smart dynamic electricity tariffs. He has a background in physics and over 13 years of experience in the energy sector. Jan, welcome to the panel.
Thanks a lot. Happy to be here.
And joining him, we have Christian Chudoba, founder and CEO of Lumenaza. Dr. Chudoba earned a doctorate in physics from Humboldt University in Berlin. He was a scientific project leader at MIT and spent over 11 years working in various management positions for Siemens and Nokia Siemens Network. Christian, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Thanks.
And joining him, we have Daniel Linden, co-founder and CPO at Tibber. Now, Daniel is on the hunt to revolutionize the way people relate to energy. He holds an MBA from the Edinburgh Business School and has previously worked with such companies as E.ON, Tieto, and Enoro. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
And finally, we have Philip Steele, future Technologies Evangelist at Octopus Energy. Philip is instrumental in driving innovation in areas such as time of use tariffs, export tariffs, smart energy connected products and services, and grant-funded R&D projects. He previously ran his own smart home company before it was acquired by Octopus. Philip, welcome to the panel. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Looking forward to discussing. And I hope you like my job title. It often raises eyebrows what that means.
Well, we can definitely explore that in this session. So let's go straight in. Daniel, what is the major value of time of use tariffs for end users?
So dynamic tariffs or time of use tariffs are very common in the places where I grew up in the Nordics these days. I'm based in Stockholm, where we started and founded the company from. Fundamentally, basically liberates the user to impact their energy costs, not only from sort of reducing of energy consumption, but also be able to shift consumption to basically cheaper hours and also hours where it has a good impact for the environment. So time of use tariffs is a way for consumers to become more active consumers into the energy market and sort of influence partially how energy is being balanced in an overall perspective, because we can avoid peak hours, but it also is a way of impacting basically how you can shape the way how much energy costs for you as a consumer, simply put.
Thanks, Daniel. And Philip, do end users understand this value and what time of use tariffs actually are?
I think so. I mean, let's start off with what were the original time use tariffs were, Economy 7. So those have been around for decades, and it was very familiar with having that off-peak rate overnight to, historically, it was for night storage heating solutions and maybe hot water. And so we've evolved from that, and now we have a range of time use tariffs. So one of the first was our Go tariff, which was focused on electric car chargers. And that group of customers really understand the benefit of being able to charge their electric car at a cheaper rate, and they can program the car to do that time in the morning. It's midnight till 4:30 in the morning, and they know exactly what the benefit is they're getting. Is that cheap energy to charge the car. It's not time dependent because the car isn't used much between midnight and 4:30 typically, and so I think they do understand what time use tariffs are. Then it gets more complex with what we've done with things like the Agile tariff. So our Agile tariff tracks the wholesale market every half hour of the day in the UK, and it's repriced every day. So that's really taking time use tariffs to the extreme. But we have tens of thousands of customers that have understood what that means and the benefits it provides to the grid. And as Daniel was saying, they're shifting energy to cheaper times. And actually, that also corresponds generally with being greener times of the day when there's more winds and solar generation than gas-fired generation and so on. And then there's more tariffs that we've created on top of that. So yes, definitely, customers really get what time use tariffs are and the benefits from them.
Thanks. And Jan, maybe in a more German or Central European context, do you think that's still the case here?
Was still muted. So I believe strongly it's already the case in Germany, and I believe in what the first two speakers were already saying. So we have a combination of ecological benefits of time of use tariffs, so bringing together really like physical flow of power supply and demand, and of course the financial potential from that. And so even in Germany, where like smart meter rollout maybe is lacking behind, so still people can also optimize the charging process in terms of ecological effect and shifting to ours where basically we have a higher share of renewables. And then of course, like in the field of smart meter customers, what we do is like continuous intraday optimization of these customers. So optimizing individual customers based on their preferences against the market on a continuous basis. So I strongly believe, of course, Germany is lacking a bit behind, but there's a huge potential, and we have to start now because we have to bring together like energy supply and demand to make energy transition possible, because otherwise we all have a problem. And then that's why it's great to have like also here like 4 innovative players on the market.
Thanks, Jan. And Christian, what about the benefits of time of use tariffs on a larger scale for the grid, particularly when it comes to the integration of renewables?
Yeah, I think it's fundamental. Having time of use tariffs, because they provide a way and a financial incentive of users to react to the availability of electricity. So if there's a lot of electricity available in the grid tend to be overloaded, and the price is typically cheap. So therefore, people might react and consume more and offload the grid. However, having said that, also what Jan is saying, at the moment in Germany at least, optimization is on the electricity part only. The transport part, the grid part, is not flexible and costs the same all over the day. So to really have the full potential of time of use tariffs, also that part needs to be dynamic. So having said that, if you, for example, you have a local congestion in the grid because everyone comes at home and puts on his heat pump and the electric car, so that might be having kind of a traffic jam in the local grid, then the grid should become more expensive and people should be incentivized to shift their load to a later stage. So I think we did the first step now, but it's a second step to be done before we can see the full potential to really also help the grid.
And Daniel, time of use tariffs are a little bit more advanced in the Nordics. Do you think, are we still waiting for that second step there, or is that kind of been resolved?
I mean, the development is not slowing down, it's intensifying, right? I think that fundamentally, I mean, we got smart meters earlier. In Sweden, it was like 2009, we got full implementation of smart meters capable of doing hourly time of use at least. Finland, Norway, and partially Denmark as well got it pretty early here compared to many other markets in the world. And basically, the adoption to these type of tariffs are large. It's commonly known that these markets are not so fixed price driven, but dynamic driven in general, which means that also the intersection going from a monthly tariff over to an hourly tariff is not so big of a difference, right? What we, in the wave of this, what we had to do was, one, educate the population about this. So basically, as being one of the front runners here to basically doing that innovation, we had to educate the population. That takes a lot of time. Now we reached into the mass market. So now this becomes a household question rather than early adopters. And that transition takes quite a long time. It's taking us several years of building that momentum up in the Nordics to basically getting it to mass market penetration. But on top of that, beyond like the pure spread of this and the know-how and things, it's technological advancements. Back in the days when we launched it in 2016-17, we also implemented smart charging, integrated that to the TSO level, and sort of optimized charging behaviors. Those advancements keep on coming, right? We are still pushing the boundaries, what can be used for this, what appliances, batteries, heating appliances, and different things that can be accumulated and used for this. So advancement doesn't only go from the pure fact of time of use, it's what you use it for. So you can basically bring it in the hands of people, but then you also need to evolve the market because it takes time for this to mature. So basically the average person in the country would understand and know about it, know that their neighbors do it, that your sort of relatives and friends do it, and that sort of spreads the word about time of use.
Thanks, Daniel. And you mentioned smart charging there. Jan, can you give us a little bit more information on why it's so valuable to combine time of use tariffs with electric vehicle charging and maybe even batteries as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, time of use tariffs are like the incentive to shift loads, basically. And of course, people or households can act on their own behalf, but like if you look at the normal household, there's not so much flexibility potential to shift. Like you use your light when you need it, your cooking behavior will not or hardly be changing. So it's the let's say washing machine that has a potential there as well. But on a priority base, so electric vehicle or a heat pump, they have much higher consumption rates than the individual devices within the household. And the other benefit the customer have is that if you look at an electric vehicle, for example, normally like the normal usage is in that way that you need to have a full cycle of charging of 1 to twice a week. So you have a very high degree of flexibility in this sense, when to charge the car and selecting the right days, the right hours, when to optimize that. And so you can do a lot in the background. So basically what we do is like with the apps, the customer can select their preferences. Like I need the car loaded the next day at 8 o'clock with a state of charge of 80%. And then we can act on their behalf based on their individual preferences and optimize that against the market, like giving the market the flexibility and decreasing by this the cost the customer has. And so electric vehicle, heat pump, home battery storages are the devices where you can do a lot of optimization without interacting with the customer behavior. So it's the easy way and with the largest potential to do that. And therefore we believe that there's the highest potential to like get the topic into like was mentioned in the mass market then, because people realize the value of that, both in terms of ecological effects, but also economic effects.
Thanks, Jan. And I think you brought up an interesting topic of using an app. So increasing transparency for end users. Philip, does time of use tariff go hand in hand with increased transparency? Can you kind of have one without the other?
Oh, absolutely. So in our Octopus Energy app, we have the half-hour data displayed. So as a customer, I can go and I can see what my consumption is for today. I've got the real-time data, I've got yesterday's data, I can go back in time. All that data is accessible to customers, so they can see what their half-hour usage looks like. With the time use tariffs, then that obviously shows the rate that paying for that energy as well. And just to pick up on some of the points there that Jan and Christian were talking about, there is an element of how a time use tariff relates to a device. So as well as our Go tariff that I described, the 4:30 midnight till 4:30, that's just a fixed time period. And I know that's the time period like a charge car, and I remember to plug it in, and maybe I've got a schedule within the app on the charge to be able to do that. But we've taken that to the next level now. We have the intelligent Octopus Go tariff. And that's a more intelligent way of doing it because it is taking control of either the car or the charger and is applying the control either during that off-peak period overnight. In fact, the IO Go version is from 11:30 in the evening till 5:30 in the morning. It's a larger time period. But we will dynamically allocate more cheap half hours during the day as we see the wholesale market changing from one day to the next. And we will then send signals to the car or to the charger. Now is an extra cheap half hour, charge the car some more. And we will keep doing more of that kind of level of integration, but at the same time, giving all of that insight to the customer within the app.
Thanks, Philip. And we've had a question from the audience. Daniel, I might direct this your way. How can time of use tariffs be designed to address disparities, such as for vulnerable or low income groups?
It's a great question. Usually that is not the target group that is the early adopters adopting it, because it also brings financial risks, right, connected to it. Time of use tariffs are more volatile, which might in its first essence look like it can bring financial risks on top of you as a consumer. If you're able financially to mitigate that, meaning that if you have high periods of costs, and if you have financial means to basically pay that, over time, you will benefit financially from it. So it's like with mortgages, of having variable mortgages and these things, right? Over time, it seems like because you don't need to pay that hedge premium that needs to be put up from a utility or from any other that puts out these hedges, right? You basically can financially meet that. But for the low income part, it's basically it can be seen as a threat, right? It's not as predictable as other things, and you might not have the possibility to financially meet with the very high energy prices. During the energy crisis we just had, the prices spiked a lot, and people got very much higher energy costs. But if you look at attribute that over years of time, it has been a very sound decision to be on variable rates, but just that you need to be able to cover through those times. So if someone is sitting now and thinking, how will I design a tariff structure or a product connected to low-income households? I think you need to think about that security piece, right? Then you need to basically probably make halfway hedged, so they can benefit of actually moving consumption to cheaper hours, but not be exposed to the full volatility. So if I would be in those shoes and sit on thinking about that, I think that could be a good direction to do it.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, go for it.
Can I just jump into that? Actually, there's a couple of examples that's happened in the UK here. So there's housing associations are starting to invest in solar battery systems on properties. So there's a housing provider in the north of the UK called Together Housing. They used some European regional development funding and put solar systems on 250 homes to experiment with how solar battery systems can take part in grid flexibility. And so they can charge and discharge the batteries at the right times of day, that we can put them onto smart tariffs. So we have one called Flux, for example, that's a matched import-export rate on a solar battery system. I visited those properties, and one customer up there ended up 95% off grid. They're a terraced bungalow, retired chap, sits and watches the telly all day, does microwave meals. So with the solar system on his property and the balancing of the tariff, he's quite a lot better off now than he was previously. Something else we started to do recently is what we call zero bills. At the moment, this works with new build properties, and that's whether they are owned or tenanted. It doesn't really matter, because it's about the technology that goes into the property. So these have significant amounts of solar. So we've got 130 plus percentage of export versus import. And that extra export allows us to offset the input costs, standing charges, but we also take control of the battery, so that we are using the excess solar on the export side at the best times of the grid, using the battery to power the house when we need to, discharge the battery when we need to. and we guarantee those properties a zero bill for a minimum of 5 years. So it can be done, and we're starting to do it now.
Thanks, Philip. Christian, you were nodding your head there. Do you have anything to add?
No, I'm basically in agreement with what Daniel and also Phil is saying. Maybe just how we see it, I see, and Phil, thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, there is also the export side, the surplus side of selling electricity, and as a matter of fact, we also offer, if you want to say so, a time of production tariff for people having export tariffs. In a way, there is then hedging virtually possible, like you, Philip, was just explaining, because whenever the energy price is higher, you earn on the export, and which can be used to save on the import, on the electricity bill. So in short, I believe there's much innovation also on the business models coming up, utilizing everything, the integration of batteries, cars, heat pumps, to optimize the overall cost for customers, and also benefit in the low income sector, because the volatility is a big risk for them. Yeah, totally agree.
Thanks, Christian. We've had another question from the audience directed towards Daniel, asking, how does Tibber earn money with time of use tariffs in Germany, or are the costs being covered by the Nordics?
Yeah, very, very specific question. I'm not sure I can answer it directly to all the points, right? But we can talk about Germany. It's an interesting topic, right? So German regulation and smart meter rollout is basically quite delayed compared to much of the outside world, or at least some of the European markets that's moving faster, right? So we're a bit behind the schedule on that one. There are many reasons for it. I think the complexity in the regulation and sort of figuring this out and that direction has slowed it down tremendously. Well, we're seeing a lot of movements here. For those customers that do have time of use tariffs, it's clear, right? That is developing in the right path. And it's not necessary for building a modern energy retailer to basically build their business model based on selling energy. I mean, we started this journey off by building a company that we were forced to become an energy retailer. It was never the incentive. I never imagined that we were going to create an energy company, but we also reckoned that it was really hard, because I came from the industry. I worked so many years with it, that if we truly want to innovate and disrupt this industry, we can't go through the classical energy companies. It would be too slow to basically build a consumer tech to make this happen. So basically, we built a company that do not profit from energy supply. And I don't think that is the way of the world either. I don't think that if you truly believe in shaping people's perspective to energy, you need to stand on the same side. If I want to reduce your energy consumption or be more effective, I can't have the other hand in the pocket and believe that I will earn a lot of money on your increased consumption. So basically, getting the incentives right are fundamental. The way of aligning that is, of course, have aligned joint between us and the consumer, and that's basically how we build it up. So, to the question, how does how does Tibber earn money on selling electricity? The brutal fact is we don't. It's not part of our business model. That's a business model of the past that I think is going to be flushed out. And if someone believes something different, they're going to be met with that reality pretty harsh, I think. So it's a development path to get smart meters out to the correct level, but the business model of creating tariffs that's eventually is going to make you a very profitable company, I don't think that's the way of the world. It's going to be in the other way, where you can help consumers become smarter, build technology, and earn money based on that. And that, I think, is the fundamentals.
Thanks, Daniel. Nice. And Philip, would you agree with that if electricity providers earn money, that they're going to be flushed out?
I don't know. I'm slightly confused with the Daniel's comments. I need to kind of play back that in my mind and think about that. I mean, in the UK, we're regulated. There's a set amount of margin that energy suppliers are allowed to make. We're a business, so we need to make a margin. We obviously do a lot of other things as well. So our Kraken platform, we license that to other energy suppliers, and in fact, other utilities. We're into water and other utilities now around the world. We sell and install solar systems. We sell and install air source heat pumps. We sell and install EV chargers, and we even lease electric vehicles now as well. So we're in quite a lot of areas of the energy industry, tackling all aspects of it.
But to reflect on that, Philip, do you believe that the actual retailing margin that you will earn in Octopus will be your main contribution long term, or do you think that the other things that you're actually investing into will be the main source of profit long term?
That would be one for my finance team. I'm afraid I can't answer that question, but I would suspect that the retail element of energy is relatively low compared to the rest, yes.
And we've talked a bit about smart meters. Jan, do you want to shed a little bit more light of Germany's smart meter rollout kind of hampering our rollout of time of use tariffs? Do you think that is the case, and how can we kind of catch up?
So I believe, like was said, there are a lot of reasons why smart meter rollout was not happening over the last 10, 15 years in Germany, and security and maybe the wrong prioritization was one. But I think now we have a legislation making it pretty clear what will happen in the future. That's very important for the market, I would say. I believe that once like that is like common sense, the rollout can be very fast, to be honest, especially for the segments with customers who have flexible assets and who see the value of their flexible assets and how much potential you have to save in this sense. So I believe that we have a good path with the legislation, but of course we wish that this would be coming a bit sooner. So I guess some lobby work from the traditional world lead it to the date of 2025. So of course we would prefer 2024 already. But still, I think it's our job to have the best solution in place what is possible. And so right now, of course, customers already can get smart meters, but there are additional costs for them, or they have to be financed somehow. But what is really important is that we have clarity concerning legislation and what will happen by 2025. And I believe, like Daniel was saying, I think we can have a look on the future for Germany as well if we look at the Nordics and what will happen there. And we strongly believe that it will be a mass market with smart meter rollout coming, more and more electric vehicles coming to the market, more and more heat pumps coming to the market. And of course, the topic of education. So not seeing dynamic tariffs just as a risk factor, which like traditional utilities somehow see like this. But if you have a flexible asset, basically you have a natural hedge with the flexible asset. So even if prices would increase, the price volatility also increases. And so you still can find very, very cost efficient hours. So I believe that we are on the right path now. It took quite some time. And of course, we hope to accelerate this process further and hoping that there are some maybe more advanced players also in the DSO segment who push the smart meter rollout and maybe even a bit before.
Thanks, Jan. And Christian, would you agree with that if you have a flexible asset, you kind of have a cost-efficient hedge?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I already agreed beforehand. That might be a battery, it might be a PV plant where you benefit from the production side. It might be EV, might be heat pump, all assets that are on the mass rollout now. Yeah. So yes, I fully agree. And I think Daniel and Phil were also agreeing, and Jan just put it again. In the end, it's also all our data is showing that basically the time of use tariff in midterm is the best option anyway. Yeah, so it's cheaper if you look over the last 5 years. We even looked over the last 10 years on average. Is the cheapest option that you can have. And if we can combine it with these assets, I think we will manage to have even more savings, but also more guaranteed savings for people to come, and might be even offer caps on potential prices that are coming, yeah, even up to maybe even a flat fee like a zero cost home that Phil was referring to in the UK. All these type of business models I clearly see coming now. The enablers like smart meterings are finally getting in place.
Thanks, Christian. That segues perfectly into a question we've had from the audience, addressing the whole panel, asking what impact will the more widespread adoption of time of use tariffs in the residential sector have on energy prices? Can we expect less intraday volatility with a higher adoption rate of TOU? Phil, maybe starting with you.
Intraday, I don't think it will affect intraday. I think there are two different types of customers: those that understand time use tariffs and do adopt them, and those that are not quite as excited about energy as perhaps I am and some of us are, and the adoption of time use tariffs. And we don't expect everyone to take up a time use tariff. It will have a big difference on the grid and the way the grid works as we move into a heavily renewable world. You know, we're at 40% in the UK now. As that keeps increasing, the time use tariffs will help balance the grid and using up renewable energy when it's particularly high, kind of like shock absorbers on the grid. I'm not sure how that affects intraday and the rest of the market, but you know, we've got to look at what consumers. It's consumers that will drive it as their adoption, and that depends on the tariffs. But it's not just the tariffs that we offer. So, for example, we've got savings sessions here in the UK. We launched it again this week. We ran it last year as well. Customers will get paid, I think it's 5:30 this evening, for every kilowatt hour that they reduce their consumption from 5:30 in the evening, because we've got a heavier load coming up this evening and less renewable energy. And that's the difference. Rather than the time of use, it's a saving. We're giving a credit back for every kilowatt hour that has not been consumed compared to your average over the past few weeks. There's lots of ways of doing this.
Maybe if I may, I wanted to add something. I believe there's depends on the timeline. So as Phil already mentioned, like we have the great challenge of coming from, he mentioned like 40% in the UK. In Germany, we are a bit more than 50% on average in terms of renewables. We want to increase the share of renewables and at the same time push electric mobility, the transformation in the heat sector. So the overall consumption rates going up. So, and basically combining this with the system of 80, 90, 100% renewables, backup power plants going out of the market. So from these factors, of course, you have you can expect a large increase in terms of volatility in the markets, both in terms of day ahead market and then intraday markets. And of course, at the same time, we need to look for like battery storages, flexibilities, and they are for sure the ones that are coming for the other use case like electric vehicles are the ones that are the cost efficient ones or the most cost efficient ones. And we need to use all of this technology to enable really cost efficient energy transition. Because if we don't do this, and then we have there was a discussion about new gas fired power plants, then the cost for the energy transition just will rise and we lose the population, and that shouldn't happen. And therefore, I believe due to the fact that like the share of renewable energies is increasing a lot, we lose the backup capacities. So it will be rather a race for flexibilities than that we have too much flexibilities and the volatility is going out of the market. So I believe that more and more of the value is going to the intraday market out of the day ahead market, because day ahead is quite easy to handle. And that's why we focus, for example, on the intraday market more, to have like really the volatile picture of demand and supply as well. But so I believe the real challenge for us is really to keep up with the increase in renewables there. So that's basically the challenge.
Daniel, what's your response to the question?
No, but I agree, right? I believe that the adoption of renewable energy and the increased mix we have will not change the perspective here. So basically, we are going to adopt much more on a consumer level for this, to trying to basically mitigate these volatilities or capture the values from the volatility. But it's an endless source of flexibility out there. The more renewables we pour in, the bigger the market gets, right? And the more we phase out fossil fuel that is basically today compensating for this and can get fired up, the bigger that gets. So I don't think it's, I know in the beginning, a lot of people are discussing like, but it's everyone start charging during the night, won't it sort of just flatten out the price curve? And now we're talking about day ahead, of course, but that doesn't happen. I mean, it's too much of a volume coming in from renewables that basically makes this a consistent market. I wouldn't say that it's an endless resource, but it's a far bigger sea that we can tip into. So it won't flatten up in any time soon. It would rather go the opposite, actually. The more we phase out the fossil.
Christian, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think I just would repeat what the others have been saying. So, no.
Okay, we're getting some more questions from the audience. So this one is addressed to Jan. How much change in demand inelasticity do you foresee with the wide implementation of time of use tariffs, particularly during high supply volatility?
We are talking about electric vehicles and so on, but if we look at the overall picture, so for example, like demand in the field of industrial customers is not very flexible, so it's very hard to change pattern there in terms of production processes. I also mentioned for normal households, they will still use their light or heat, like cooking and so on when they're used to it, and so there will be some days, and Philip mentioned this, like you can do some examples on this. Like I also believe that in the future, like when we have days within the winter period and there's not much PV, not much wind, we all have to, and there will be some extreme days, we all have to do the education, as Daniel was mentioning, through the app solution and telling the people really to save energy these hours or these days. There will be some years in the future, and so I believe it strongly depends on the periods, and we will have times where we have far too much renewables, summer peak, for example, and high potential for negative prices and charging vehicles for free. So to answer the question, it strongly depends also on the timing. So which quarter hour we are talking of, or hour, but of course, and that is something like, of course, we have integrated in our prediction model as well. Like we have a recoupling of like the extreme price volatility and having a model like how customers are reacting to this. Right now, it's basically not much is happening, but we believe that that's with negative prices or with extreme events will change in the future. So. But you cannot give a clear answer because in most of the cases or most of the hours during the year, there will be no large effect besides like automatic optimization in the background. But you will have certain times where we have to also change behavior, because if we have 100% renewables and in the winter we have like 2 days without wind and PV, we have to change patterns. We shouldn't charge our electric vehicles, or even then speaking about vehicle to grid, for example, like taking electricity out of the electric vehicles. So I believe it strongly depends on the timing, but for sure it's an important factor for the future.
Thanks, Jan. And we've had another question from the audience, which I'll direct to Daniel. How can dynamic tariffs be a reliable solution for people in apartments who might not have access to batteries, EVs, or heat pumps?
Oh, so you need to separate the factors of impact when it comes to time of use tariffs, right? So you can either, we used to call it like behavior changes that you can do, behavior driven sort of changes, and then we have the automatic responses. We tend now to, in this call, talk a lot about the automated responses, which basically means assets under control. We talk about batteries, solar, PVs, heat pumps, and cars, right? Which we are connected IoT, and we are scheduling in them and dispatching them in large quantities with the popular name of them VPP, or virtual power planting. But for an apartment owner that do not own an EV, or might own an EV but don't charge at our home, doesn't maybe control the heating systems in their own household, nor have the possibility to have a large set of solar panels or batteries, the automatic dispatch of this become quite irrelevant. So then we're talking about the behavior changes instead, what you can do to this. And the typical use cases for behavior changes has been basically scheduling what you can schedule washing machine and dryers, different things that you can do out of that. And then, of course, in the most extreme price events like we had during the last year with the energy crisis, people get quite get impacted. So they also try to change their everyday lives, meaning that they might push that cooking to another hour or do things. But bluntly said, you can do just so much with dynamic tariffs for apartment owners. You cannot do the entire scheme, right? It's when we're talking about the automated response for these assets, that's where the real value lies, and truly. So yes, there are benefits of time of use tariffs to contribute that to an apartment owner, but it's only so much. It won't go endlessly, and we just need to embrace that fact.
Thanks, Daniel. And Philip, in your title, Future Technologies Evangelist, I want to ask you, what can we expect in the future? What are the major trends we're seeing in this space?
I think we'll have more interaction, more automation. So can we control your heating? We're doing some research on the project called HeatFlex. We did it last winter. We'll do it again this winter. Certainly, we're already doing it with EV chargers. We'll do it with solar battery systems and things. More data analytics and breakdowns. Get engaging on that side of things. Our saving sessions, I think, is going to prove very popular. We're expecting 1 million customers to take part this afternoon. That's going to be really interesting to see the data from. So there will be more of that. We have already tariffs like our fan club, where customers that live within the postcode of a wind turbine are getting a discount. Maybe we'll see more kind of social type tariffs. Maybe we'll see more kind of peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer hasn't really taken off. And I'd love to experiment with some of that and see if there's examples of peer-to-peer working. You could imagine those that have got solar and relatively affluent, perhaps, and they're not too worried about the benefit they get from the export. Well, let's sell that on to the more vulnerable, those who feel poverty. It's a kind of a social good. So I think there's something around that we could be looking at. I mean, there's this. Now that we have smart meters, time use tariffs, all the incentives and things, the technology is so integrated. There's a lot that we can do over the next few years.
Absolutely. Thanks, Philip. Christian, would you add anything there? What are you most excited for in the future?
Yeah. So I'm basically a lazy person. I believe most people are lazy. I think most of the innovation should go into automation and hiding all the complexity we have been talking about, because nobody really wants to care about it, just want to get the benefits at home. And I think that should be our focus. And that's at least what we believe the most innovation will be around.
Jan, what about you?
I agree with what Christian and Phil were saying already. So I believe like it's the challenge of our generation to solve the issue, like integrating renewable energies into the space, and there it's an absolute precondition to have dynamic tariffs at a large scale, and not just dynamic tariffs, but smart dynamic tariffs, as we were mentioning through the last half hour. Like you need an app solution where you have transparency, where you can like put the right let's say configuration on a customer level. So we believe strongly in that every customer is individual, and you should optimize on that level. And I believe it's a great opportunity to create energy brands, because right now utilities is basically like the energy retail is basically having a contract, but then there are grid operators in the background basically doing the job. And so in the future, I believe it's about a smart utility that is offering, like Christian was saying, that is offering a service where processes are automated in the background, optimizing on his behalf, and doing this stuff. And therefore, I believe you can get people, as Daniel was mentioning, you can get people educated on that, and they have to see the advantages of a model like this, benefiting from it, and that's our true belief, like combining like really like the economical factors with being ecological friendly, and enabling a faster integration of renewable energies. Like we are wasting a lot of wind power right now, like billions, which is quite stupid because you could use this electricity for charging cars or using it for heat pumps and so on. And so I believe it's a great opportunity we have there, and we need a lot of players who implement smart solution for the customers, and customer will realize that dynamic tariffs will be the future.
Thanks, Jan. And Daniel, what about you? Final words. What are you looking forward to in the future, particularly looking at different regions, regulation, and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to work with this on a daily basis, look at the regulation and the technology, right? Because that's sort of where we see that stuff will move and we can make an impact. But what this industry has been terribly bad at, and what we actually need to excel in, is communication to consumers. It's not possible to make these technological advancements without getting the customers with us, to basically package it, become very straightforward in how this works, and simplify the hell out of it, because that's basically what we need to do. We need to pull off this magic trick where we'll make people's homes smart and contribute to this, and package in a way so mass market can understand it. And I think that's the challenges with all big technological shifts, is that the technology is great, but if you can't explain it, it's going to die, right? So it's not going to be big. So basically what we need to do is be great advocates of this, and talk about it and explain it and package it in smart solutions. And we're in a good way. We have not cracked it fully yet, but we're on a good way, and I think that is where the most weight needs to come out, because the technology is already here, but it's just that too few people know about it.
Absolutely, thank you. Some strong parting words there, Daniel, and I think we can all learn from that a lot and take that away with us. So thank you to the four of you for the really interesting panel discussion. A lot of really valuable insights there. Thanks for taking the time.